Earlier this week, President Trump touted his administration's new Opportunity Zones program, which looked to drive development and create jobs in economically distressed communities. Take a look.
I recently established the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council, chaired by Secretary Carson, who, by the way, is doing a fantastic job at HUD. Its mission is to marshal 16 federal agencies and coordinate dozens of existing federal programs to provide maximum support to opportunity zones.
As the president said, the cabinet member leading the charge on this effort is Dr. Ben Carson, Housing and Urban Development Secretary. Here's my conversation with him about the Opportunity Zones program. So, Dr. Carson, I remember during the 2016 election campaign, then candidate Donald Trump, he said this line. I think he first said it in an event in Milwaukee, but I think he said it a few times after that, aimed directly at African Americans, and the way that, in his view, they'd been let down by democratic governance, both at the national level but also at the state and local level in urban areas. And he said to African Americans, "What have you got to lose?" Now he's the president. You're the secretary at HUD, and in many ways you're at the forefront of making good on that promise to African Americans that things would go better with Donald Trump in the White House, you at HUD. What would you point to as the key initiatives that you're driving to try and show African Americans in particular that life's going to be better?
Well, you know, for a very long time, for many decades, policies, both Democrat and Republican policies, have been pretty much aimed at just getting people under roof, getting people into programs, and that was considered success. We consider success, how many people can we get out of the programs and self-sufficient on their own. So, you know, that's why you have things like the Opportunity Zones, where people who have made a lot of money, quite frankly, over the last couple of years, have unrealized capital gains. They're going to invest that money somewhere. Okay, they're just not going to let it sit there. So why not create an incentive for them to invest it long term in the economically deprived areas of our country? And because of the way the Opportunity Zones and the funds are structured, you know, the accruement of the benefits does not occur immediately. You have to leave them in for 5 years before you get a 10% decrement in the original capital gains investment that would be old. An additional 2 years, you get another 5%. You leave it in for 10 years. You don't have to pay any capital gains on the new money that was gained from the investment. So you have a reason to leave it in there. But the other thing is, you're not going to just make an investment and walk away. You're going to be very interested in the return on your investment. So you're going to be continuing to look at that area and do those things and create those relationships that make sure that things are successful.
So what kind of investments are we talking about here?
We're talking about the opportunity, the qualified opportunity funds exist. And they are able to be attracted to some of the various different endeavors that are going on. So businesses, you know, a lot of the initial money that's been committed is devoted to, you know, multifamily housing. So
it's new housing?
Yes.
Is it?
New housing and rehabilitated housing.
Right. So how many opportunity zones are there in the country?
There's 8,761.
Wow. And how big is a typical area? I mean, what are we talking about here? Is it a whole town or a neighborhood?
Well, almost the entire island of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone. So, you know, it varies, the different ones. The smaller states obviously don't have as many or as big. You know, some of the larger states have several hundred opportunity zones. And they're chosen by the governors themselves. And the governors do this in consultation with the people in their state, because they're the ones who really have a good impression of the areas that really need to be developed.
So is this, is there a kind of even balance between urban and rural, or how do you see that all playing out?
Well, you know, even though we're called the, you know, the U.S. Department of Urban
Housing
and Urban Development, Obviously, we're very concerned about the rural areas too, and there are multiple rural areas that are included within the opportunity zones. And we're very interested in housing in rural areas, and particularly, utilizing advances in housing. You take things like manufactured housing. Most times when people think of that, they think about trailers. Well, we have moved so far beyond that, and the manufactured housing stock now is beautiful. It looks better than site-built housing.
When you say manufactured, does that mean kind of just
like
ready assembled?
Like modular, already assembled, can be put together very quickly on a foundation, and they tend to weather storms better than site-built homes, and they're about 30% less expensive.
So a lot of this, the political conversation isn't focused on these sorts of details. It feels to me like you're kind of operating to some extent under the radar of the sort of day-to-day.
Well, you necessarily
do you like that, or would you like to have more attention on what you're doing?
You necessarily work under the radar because the radar doesn't like to talk about good things that are going on. I always tell people, if you really want to know what's going on at HUD, go to HUD.gov and just look at the list of accomplishments. You'll be blown away.
Good to see you, Dr. Carson. Thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thank you.